Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal, and I host the podcast Alternative Interests with my best friend, Elle. We're Washington natives that love true crime, the supernatural, and all things weird, dark, and spooky. Join us every week as we take turns sharing our own twists on the garbage humans that commit crimes, or a paranormal story that we have been obsessing over. Whatever topic we cover, this show is sure to capture all of your alternative interests. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Files Obscura podcast. We are so glad to see you again today. As always, I am joined with Vlad. Hey there. And Cece.
Hi, guys.
Unfortunately, Nathan couldn't be here today due to a scheduling issue, but he will definitely be here for the next week's episode. As you know, as we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, getting stuff taken care of, Nathan's actually been doing some great work, music-wise for us, and I've heard samples of what he's been doing, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. But in other news, we have a very, very fun story today. We're covering one of the cases that made the saying, "The devil made me do it," so infamous in today's pop culture that it's just become synonymous with horror films and stuff like that. However, originally, I'm going to put this disclaimer out there. I wanted to do two different cases, but for different reasons, I've decided not to do it, in part because when I finished the first story, the one that we're covering today, I realized just how much information was in these cases, because these were real trials and everything, that real murders that happened. The workload became overwhelming, and I didn't want this to become a 3.5 hour episode. But I also wasn't too keen on the idea of doing two parts, because the second reason being, the other case that we would have covered is the Arnie Cheyenne Johnson murder trial, which is being turned into the Conjuring 3 movie. Mm-hmm. That's the reason I didn't want to cover it on this episode, because it kind of at that point defeats what I felt was the whole purpose of this podcast, which is to cover more obscure content. And I don't want to cover something that's about to be a movie next year.
Well, that being said, I mean, we don't know when a movie is going to release, considering the...
Oh, it's always had a 2021 deadline. Of course, with COVID, we don't know, but
yes, that's what
they've never said that they're going to change the date or anything.
Yeah, I heard about the movie coming out, and I guess that is a good point.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm still down to talk about it, don't get me wrong, because then we can talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren. Very fun, fascinating, just general topic for me.
Yeah.
I also have a weird personal anecdote with an ex of mine about Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Okay.
But
cool.
Again, it'd be something worth that episode if that's what people want, if that's what we decide to do. But for those reasons, I can't.
It would be fun to do it.
Yeah, and we'll see, because I kind of also want to give breaks between episodes depending on the topics, which is why I'm not doing another Cold War episode like I have planned for the future. So we'll talk about it. We'll see how that goes down the road, because, like I said, it's definitely a fun topic. It's definitely interesting, and just so much that happened in that case. Definitely didn't go the way I expected it to. Let me just put it that way. With some of the other, possessions and exorcism stories that I've read, that Arnie was definitely different. So who knows? We'll probably cover it in a month or so. But today we're going to be covering the case of Michael Taylor from Ossett, England. So this is going to be interesting. This is in your ballpark, CC. So definitely correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to lie, because a lot of this information I didn't have time to go back and double check geography or anything like that. I don't live in.
I will have fun correcting you.
So I'm not sure how often it'll actually come up, but just forewarning, I'm not English. I don't know anything about England personally, so. I mean, other than, just the basics in life, how are things going,
It's all right. It's going okay. Not too bad. Having a good time.
Yeah. How you been doing, Cece? Because I know with school starting back up soon, you got a lot on your mind.
I've been very busy. For those of you who don't know, I am now in a studio. So I've got this alongside a studio, soon university work as well, and potentially a job when I move back to university. So I'm going to be very busy in the next upcoming year or so.
Yeah. So, I mean, we all got a lot on our own plates. I know I am primarily, as always, I'm trying to take charge and most of all with the podcast, trying to get everything's organized, all of our collaboration works. I've been the one prioritizing that because at the end of the day, I still see this as my baby. This is still my pet project that I've been wanting to do for years. And it's just like, I know with everyone's personal life going on, I don't feel comfortable asking you guys that stuff. Just because I feel like it's my responsibility at the end of the day. But man, has it been taxing on me. So much so that I was actually afraid we wouldn't be able to get this episode out in time. But luckily, we're here, we're recording. About time we get into it. So as always, let's start off with the very fun Two Truths and a Lie. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, SpongeBob. So let's get. So, all right, let's go with our first statement. As always, I did a little bit of research, about exorcisms in general and stuff like that, and I found out something. That exorcisms as a whole aren't a uniquely Christian concept or Abrahamic religious concept, I should say, because they're, Judaism and Islam, have their own various aspects on it, very similar religions.
Yeah.
But I found out that this is something that expands to, major and minor religions as a whole. And they aren't always about demons. Sometimes it could be about spirits, both malevolent and benevolence,
Yep.
Certain religions have specific days set in the calendar specifically for exorcisms, like in Buddhism.
Yeah.
So the general statement as a whole is that exorcisms aren't uniquely a Christian concept, and they're used for more than just demons. Okay. We're all good on that, Cece?
Yeah, we're good on that.
All right. So, second statement. When I was, looking into the trials and looking into the transcripts of what happened during this, I discovered that the inspector that first arrived on scene to the murder that made the trial so infamous, when he first arrived at the scene, he had to immediately go outside and just vomit uncontrollably because of what he had witnessed, the horror and tragedy. So much so that when the second officer arrived, he had to stop him from entering.
Okay.
Because to paraphrase, he basically said, "You don't want to go in there, son. I've been on the force for a few years and I've never seen anything like this."
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's how bad it was. So then,
That's when you worry.
right? when you got a veteran on the force throwing up in the front yard. So, all right. Then, of course, our third and final statement. Michael, the Michael Taylor, the guy that we're focusing on today, when he was found, he would be found surrounded by the literal remains of his family. And when we get into some of when we actually go into what happened and what evidence was found, there were pieces of skin that were just ripped out. Keep in mind, there was no murder weapon ever used or found during this. Everything was done by hand. Yeah.
You can't see by pulling faces.
It gets a lot worse. We'll talk about it. Yeah. Michael would be found surrounded by the remains of his family. So those are your three statements. That exorcisms aren't uniquely Christian and are used for more than just demons. The first inspector on the scene to arrive had to go outside and vomit from what he witnessed. And finally, that Michael would be found surrounded by the remains of his family.
Okay, so I know the first one is true.
Okay.
Because I know it's something that, for sure, like in Jewish cultures, it's also.
Well, that's also why I kind of put that caveat of Abrahamic religions, because of how closely Islamic and Judaism is to Christianity and their roots and all that.
Okay, so you're saying like
even Eastern religions, African religions, and stuff of that sort. Okay. Even they have their own forms of exorcisms for different things.
Yeah, no, because most religions have some form of evil within their teachings. So I'd imagine they'd have some form of exorcism, be it the exorcism we know or something very different.
Yeah. Because like I said, from some of the other things I've seen, it's not uniquely just, the power of Christ compels you and that's all that's ever going to work, Like I've seen different rituals and tactics that I've read up on. So
I think the interesting thing about the last two is that they sound like they could go together really well. But
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I did try to make this one easier, but we're dealing with an exorcism case. It's kind of hard to talk about any details that when everything is so extreme in the first place to make them sound real. You know, so I did try to make this one easier, but it was kind of impossible.
I'm hovering more around the third one being the lie than I am the second.
Okay.
I think the second one's a lie.
You think the second one's a lie?
Yeah.
All right. So just real quick. So you're gonna go with Vlad. You're gonna go with the second one.
Yes.
CC, you're gonna go with the third one, or do you want to change that?
I'm gonna say the third one because there has to be no way you could pull people apart with your hands.
I wish you can see the expression on my face I just gave you, because some of the things I read are definitely they're going to make you question that. But I'm not going to say either one of you are right or wrong right now. I'm just curious, real quick, where your lines of reasoning come from. I know Cece said that she just wishes it's not true, and that's fine.
Pretty much.
I get it, and I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. You know, I want to know where your reasoning comes from, where you don't think the inspector, just couldn't do it. Because
it sounds like a scene from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay, so it seems a little too cartoonish, almost.
Well, not too cartoonish, but I'm just saying it sounds like something I heard about in a movie, and I'm like, you probably made it up.
I mean, yeah. But I don't want to give it away by giving exposition to a different case,
I know.
Obviously, because I know the truth, I don't want to spill the beans. So,
but I think it's the second one.
Okay,
yeah.
You think it's the second one? I'm going to lock you into that one. You sure?
Yes.
All right, I'm locking you into the second one, Vlad. Cece, you're still going with number 3?
Yeah, why not? I'm going to go number 3, and I'm praying it's not true. I'm praying.
I'm locking you into number 3. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm going to break character a bit. One of you is right. I'm not going to tell you which one.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
As always, I do a bit of research. I look into a few things to kind of give some context to everything. So I figure if we're going to look into an exorcist case, let's look a bit into exorcism as a whole. And obviously you both were right on the first one. It's not a uniquely Christian concept. The religious or spiritual practice of evicting demons or other spiritual entities from a person or area believed to be possessed is what we call exorcism. It takes different forms and different shapes in different religions and customs. Depending on the spiritual background of the exorcist, they may make the entity swear to an oath, which is, fun fact, what exorcism means in Greek. It means binding by oath. They might perform an elaborate ritual, or they'll command it to leave in the name of a higher power, which is, the power Christ compels you. It's so synonymous with exorcism. Mm-hmm. That's where it comes from. Various religions have some form of exorcist practice, from, the Abrahamic religions to Eastern religions like Hindu and Buddhism. Side notes that I didn't put in my notes, but in Buddhism, there was something I read about them having a specific day on the specific, calendar year, depending, where for it's like the 29th day, and on, the 29th, whatever part of calendar, they would just be like performing some ritual or dance or something, for a certain amount of time. And this was believed to rid themselves of any, malevolent spirits that may be residing in them that they've gained throughout the year or whatever. Obviously, I'm not too well in depth about it. I didn't write it down because it's not going to pertain to what we're covering. But I thought it was interesting, So, it is nice to see all that, because also, if you guys are a fan of Ju-On, or as we call it in the West, The Grudge,
yeah,
they have their own form of exorcist scenes in that movie. Specifically, it's the third American one, I think, off the top of my head, where I remember vividly they would be performing a ceremony with a bow and all that, and the Japanese woman was dressed in ceremonial clothing and all that. She had her face paint on, and she was, humming whatever traditional, or for the movie's sake, vows or whatever. and she would have to ingest a specific liquid, and this would be the purifying thing as she is absorbing, like the priestess was absorbing the evil entities.
Yeah.
That's how the scene presented it and stuff like that. So, how much of that is based in truth, I don't know. Didn't really pertain to the episode, but, to see different ways that people try to express, this specific practice is interesting.
Well, the belief in demons, it's something that I believe is just international at this point. Every single culture has a version of demons, or spirits, or something like that.
Yes and no, because I'm a big fan of like Japanese culture too. So I watch a lot of Japanese specific content creators on YouTube, and one of them I cover explains kind of weird caveat about like Demon Slayer, how they're not actually demons. They're more like onis, which are its own thing, which you can think of as malevolent spirits, but they're not synonymous with demons. So that's where like you kind of have a little bit of disconnect when you're talking to it, especially from a Western standpoint.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into the topic of Eastern.
It's a whole nother rabbit hole for another day.
Yeah, like I don't even know. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't even know what the difference between a Jokai and an Oni is. So.
Honestly, right now, I'm too tired to try to pull that one out of my ass.
I think yokai tend to be slightly more like ghosts. Oni tend to be slightly more like our traditional kind of demons.
Yeah, I believe
that's the best way to put that.
Kind of the most broad stroke you can make right now. I'd have to really look into it again to tell you, but like I said,
we're not professionals.
Like I said, another day, another time.
Yeah.
To look a little bit more into Christianity and Christianity's history with exorcisms. Obviously, we all know we use it to cast out demons specifically. Not malevolent spirits, but demons from hell. The exorcists who perform such deeds are usually an ordained priest of the church or someone thought to be blessed by God, graced with special powers or skills. Catholic exorcists may use prayers and religious material like gestures, amulets, or symbols, etc., whatnot. One source even said that they use some form of formulas. I couldn't find any more information explaining what that was about, but
they're supposed to use holy water. I know that much.
Well, but that goes into like just getting the right amount of items, and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, I tried to find other things, that they've used, but I couldn't find. That was the one that I really wanted to know more about and could find nothing. So I don't know if we ever come up to it again in the future and I get the opportunity to talk to an exorcist, I would really like to know more, because that one's going to stick in my.
It looks interesting. It looks interesting. I mean, I really, really recently watched The Conjuring, and I'm like, I kind of want to know more.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see, the movies, but for me, it's more fascinating to read the actual history, because then it's like, I can't just walk away and be like, it was movie magic. It's like, no, that happened to people, people live through that, but then of course, as always, everyone's calling on God. The power of Christ compels you. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I cast thee out, or whatever. Very common, tropes that you see in exorcist movies and the like, is truly used, a lot of the times we use the name Jesus, sometimes just screaming Jesus. I've read in some cases works, or in Catholic exorcists specifically may also call upon specific angels or archangels to assist in removing the demon or entity in the person's body. So I didn't know.
I mean, if you're interested in like exorcisms as well, there are obviously, I think it's mainly African preachers that do this, but you got live televangelists who will quote unquote do exorcisms on people, and you've seen some of them, and there is a lot of screaming, Jesus compels you, or God compels you.
Yep, and you have a lot of televangelists here in America that do it too, and they are doubted as fraud all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of times they are, they really are just frauds.
No, you're right.
It's funny you mentioned Africa real quick, because literally about before you came to pick me up, Vlad, so we can record, I read briefly an article about this. Supposedly, there is an African preacher who claims to be able to heal people and even exorcise people because he can fart on them, because his farts are the literal Holy Spirit.
This sounds like the greatest friend of all time. It really does.
I'm sorry. I wish I read.
I'm holding back laughter. I'm holding back laughter.
I saved the article, I think.
Are you sure it's not an Onion article? This sounds
no. I swear to God, because if it was the Onion or something like that, or I would have just been like, nah, whatever. I cannot, talk about the legitimacy of it, but it is an article I found just before you picked me up, and it just it's still in my mind. Because I'm seeing the picture of the dude in my face, and he's just got the most happiest smile. Think of like a discount Don Cheadle.
Oh.
Yeah.
I gotcha. All right, interesting.
So that's the best way I can describe him, but he's just got like that, or like Dula Hill would probably be closer. Yeah, his face. You look like you don't know who Dula Hill is.
No, I don't.
You ever watch Psych on USA?
Oh, him. Okay.
Yeah, that's Dula Hill.
All right, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I love him as an actor. He's great. I first got introduced to him because of Psych. Just great show, by the way. But we'll probably look into, observation skills and stuff like that when I talk about another case that's on my mind probably next month. So, yeah, because it's a lot of science and psychology to go into that one. Is not the right place for that. But one thing I learned is that Protestants may also, perform exorcisms. I did not know this.
Mm-hmm.
Things I learned about Protestants, however, is that they mainly only rely on the Holy Trinity through the power of prayer during an exorcism. So they don't use, holy water. They don't use any religious amulets, or they may only use a crucifix and that's it. And then, they say their prayers and then use the power of God. And that's it.
Yep.
And that was kind of interesting to me because in my experience, I grew up in a very Protestant household. I didn't grow up around Catholic teachings, but we never talked about exorcisms. It was never in the realm of discussion about people being possessed. It just wasn't part of our culture. It just wasn't part of our heritage growing up, learning about that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a weird thing to see on the sideline because when I talk about it, it just I get these weird looks from my family and my church at the time. It was like, why? It's like, that's not even real. That's whatever. But you can go to a church and go through, the clergy and talk to everyone and find the appropriate person, given that they deem it an appropriate enough case, So I don't know. It was weird,
I mean, I've always assumed as someone who has grown up agnostic atheist that all of Christianity just sort of believed in exorcism.
No, it really is not. Especially after the Reformation, all the Lutherans and the Calvinists and everybody, those extremists really took their own turns.
There's so many different beliefs and sects of Christianity. I was raised up in Pentecostal, actually.
Okay.
And then my family went to a Baptist church.
Okay.
So
similar to me. Because when I grew up, I was predominantly in a non-denominational household, which for people who don't know what that is just literally you look at the word, you take it from what the word says. You don't try to translate it. You don't try to, influence it. It's just, it is what it is.
Oh,
but then we went to a Southern Baptist church for a few years too.
Well, another thing I want to correct you on. Well, I don't know. Maybe some people are different, but the Lutheran and Calvinist beliefs are, if anything, they're more like theologists that a lot of Baptists or different, I don't know, I think different Christians, not just Baptists.
Well, Baptists originated from these kind of, I believe, Calvinists, actually.
Yeah, Calvinists. But my father would actually study a lot of Calvin's works and Lutheran works as well. And it's not something that I like. Baptist, yes, but we would like study the actual like writings of we don't follow, like it's not a sect.
I hear you, but it's something. It's what's I had a good analogy for this and I'm losing it. God, I don't know.
The thing is, like, theology is fascinating.
For me, it is too. But theology doesn't have to be particularly with Christianity. Although that's what we associate it with primarily, especially here.
Yeah.
But no, it's just when I was saying like they're a bit more extreme in their own concept, it was just like I'm talking about like Calvin and Martin Luther specifically, the actual people of the actual time. God, were they strict? They were hard, and they also believed in predeterminism, which is something I'm aptly against. So,
well, I totally kind of get. Look, I'm not.
I don't know what that's about.
Predeterminism is the idea that everything's already set in motion and your future's already planned for you. God already knows where you're going, and you cannot be saved. If you're saved in God's eyes, you're already saved.
I don't want to get into a whole discussion about theology, but I kind of believe in predeterminism because I think look my whole look. I'm gonna be honest. Religion is complicated. I don't want to get into it.
I'm not about to attack you here if that's what you're thinking. No, it's I have a very interesting perspective because it falls in the idea of fate and free will, which is one of those general discussion topics I actually have on the table for us in the next couple of weeks. So I kind of want to like save all this for that.
Yeah.
So we'll put a pin in it because I feel like this is actually going to be a really great discussion in the future.
Okay, but yeah.
So because I have some interesting points. I can't say I'm wholeheartedly against it, but a lot of me just doesn't agree with it for various reasons. But let's get back on topic. So of course, like I said, we were going to do the Satanic Panic next week. In which I was looking into it for this episode because I was curious when it happened, which actually happened after this case. So it doesn't really fall in line with the series of exorcisms that happened in the 80s or 90s with this case. But an interesting thing that I found in recent years is that in 2018, there was a rise in exorcism requests that the church was receiving, with 500,000 people in Italy requesting one. In America, prior to 2018, there were only 12 appointed priests that could perform an exorcism. After 2018, there was now over 50, with one priest claiming to get 2,000 requests within a single year. Internationally, there are 250 priests that would be appointed by the Vatican at this time. Countries with deep religious ties have also seen a greater desire for exorcists. In Mexico, specifically, something I found out, there has seen one of the largest spikes in demand for exorcisms because it is such a deeply religious country, and with a lot of different ties to different beliefs and stuff like that. One exorcist I found talked about how in Mexico there are, these various dark cults that have taken rise over the years after, the pedophile scandals with the church, kind of broke out. When people began to lose faith in the church, they began to seek, that salvation or whatever they were looking for elsewhere. And they found it in beliefs like voodoo and Santeria and Satanism, just being rampant everywhere. He commented how, Haiti has voodoo. America has Satanism. Santeria is, big in other parts of the Caribbean. But in Mexico, you get all of that. And then nowhere else but Mexico will you also see what he claimed was the biggest evil that sprouted was the cult of Santa Muerte. And, I get it. But at the same time, I would also try to look at the viewpoints from people who were, claimed to be followers of Santa Muerte and stuff like that. And these are just people looking for answers that they should be able to get from their government, and they can't. And they are in as far as I know, just a culture that prides religious background. Yeah. So that's what they want to fall back on. So when they can't rely on the church because pedophile scandals and everything like that, who else do they have to turn to?
I think it's very interesting because Santa Muerte itself is not canonical to.
No, it's not, and it only saw a rise in the 90s, and more so now.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a modern creation.
Yeah. So a lot of people in Mexico are actually against the concept of Santa Muerte, and they believe it to be not I wouldn't say not religious, but not like Roman Catholic.
Oh, it's definitely not Roman Catholic.
Yeah, because by the way, Roman Catholic seems to be from my experience, personal experience, that's Mexican. Seems to be the predominant religion in Mexican culture. For most part, like I said, it's not the only religion people follow, but it is the most popular one. Like every single Mexican family I know, or deeply Mexican family, has a statue of Virgen Maria inside their house. So
yeah, and there's all kinds of, because I come from an Irish background too. lot of Ireland, is deeply Roman Catholic, and stuff like that. So it's not like I could escape it either. But there's something unique about Mexico's take on Catholicism. It's undeniable.
It's very different.
And a lot of it has to do with the culture that came before that, just influencing. Because nowhere else would you see such, big festivities for the dead. Nowhere else would you see such just grand displays of effigies or whatever you have of saints and other people.
But yeah, Mexico's take on Roman Catholic is very different from something you'd see in I'd say Italy.
It's in Italy, especially where you have Rome, you have the Vatican City. It resides in Italy, and you see more fanaticism here in the States and in Mexico when it comes, to religious ideas and displays of faith and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's fascinating.
So,
but I myself am not Catholic.
This is also foreign to me.
Yeah. I don't feel very comfortable talking about it too much, but just because I know a lot of people who are Catholic, so
yeah. Well,
I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it's deep. It really is.
It is. And Vlad, remember, this is the place where we discuss. We don't cast judgment on each other on this.
I know.
We just talk.
I know.
So I mean, even from just a cultural standpoint, it is just fascinating to me. I do want to do more research into it. So I do want to look more into some of these other cults, especially like Santa Muerte was one I put a pin in possibly doing a whole episode on, or maybe one of the series of cultural cults that are still active today or something like that. But to move on, that gives you some context, because the specific priest that was doing this, or exorcist I should say, he's not a priest, he actually does mobile exorcisms. He goes to people's houses, or he'll set up an event at a church to do this. This is not something ordained by the church. This is not something that it can only happen in one place because there's only one building and stuff like that, which fascinated me, the idea of a mobile exorcist, because there was such a massive demand. And I watched a lot of these videos, translated obviously from Spanish and stuff like that, and just seeing these people crying out, saying how much they needed help and stuff like that. Granted, I'm a skeptic first, always, but there's something moving about it,
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of made me question a bit more about the legitimacy of some forms of spiritualism, like exorcism and stuff like that. But I don't know what I'm doing. I kind of lost track of my notes for a second. Forgive me. But I should say finally that most people who seek a priest for an exorcism of the church tries very hard to maintain a good image by not performing the act when someone needs psychiatric or medical help. On average, they take less than 10% of cases, that they use.
That's good.
Yeah, and even then, of the less than 10% that they take, most of the time it doesn't get to the extreme levels that you'd see in movies or anything like that.
Yeah,
because especially for Catholic exorcisms, they have levels of appropriate action to take depending on what they deem worth it. So they really do try to not just make a big scene out of it like they did in the 80s. But at the same time, it's like, even if you have that one case that makes you say, what if? It kind of throws all the skeptics off. So it's weird to have still such a big institution that's been around for over 800 years and so on, still saying, exorcisms are real. And you get cases like we're about to discuss that really make you say, maybe, So also, little important asterisk to put in here, the church itself does not see exorcisms as punishment. I've actually discussed some of this with people online and Reddit and people in my personal life, and they like to say like, oh, they're punishing the wicked person and all that. I was like, no. The church, has stated that they do not see this as an act of punishment, or rather as a cure for the afflicted individual. So they rarely ever.
Why would it be punishment?
Because a lot of people believe that the only way to get possessed by a demon is to, be bathing in that specific sin that the demon is associated with. So say you're a very slutty person. Well, in theory, you'd be eventually, inhabited by a demon who personifies those traits. So people think that you're calling this upon yourself. So therefore, it's seen as a punishment in their eyes. But the church doesn't, like I said, they don't see this as a punishment, because a lot of the times, especially in the story that we're about to cover, there's nothing necessarily that came out that way. that would suggest that.
Well, the funny thing is, like, that also wouldn't make any sense, considering that if we are following the beliefs of Christ himself didn't see it as punishment. He saw it as salvation. So,
exactly.
Like, I mean, he saved people from all sorts of, like, I mean, straight up, he didn't care if you were a whore or, what was Solomon's? No, not Solomon. The guy on the whatever. Point being, Christ was. I
kind of wanted you to finish that one.
I can't remember, dude. I can't remember every single tale from the Bible, but what I do remember is, Christ himself was a kind, loving person, and whenever he saved someone from whether it be a demon or just literally anything, blindness or death in some cases.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Lazarus.
It wasn't like, oh, I saved you, but like, you're an awful person. So
yeah, no, it was just, I saved you. You have the chance to, redeem your life. Live a good life. And
so you would think, like, who thinks this is some kind of punishment? If anything, it's salvation. It should be, right? Exorcism.
Modern propaganda in any form will corrupt us, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been dealing with and I come from a very religious family. My aunt does listen to the podcast, but so I don't want to cast any scrutiny towards, good Christians, but at the same time, there's been many Bible thumpers throughout the years spouting brimstone and fire about stuff that I have gone back and proven to myself doesn't even exist in the Bible.
Yeah.
So it's stuff about like hell this, hell that, and which, granted, fine, I hear you, but at the same time, there's just so many things that they were talking about that I could literally not find a single scripture, about. So it's just like, you don't even know what you're spouting. You're just a microphone at this point, just saying whatever the person behind you saying.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of environment that we've had for years, for decades in America. And not just with religion, not just Christianity, but politics, local policing, all kinds of stuff. Same kind of problem. We create an echo chamber of just the same rhetoric because we don't want to actually do the hard part and research and make our own opinion. So, it's whatever. It's a big problem we're still facing nowadays and will continue to face. So, but, enough, extra information. Let's get into the case. So we're going to go back to 1974, okay? In the English countryside of West Yorkshire, it says, lies, the small little town of
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire, my bad.
There we go.
That's
I was waiting for that. I can't wait for you to do my episode.
It's going to get worse.
It's going to be fun.
Lies a little town of Ossett, a small market town near the city of Wakefield. This is where, like I said, in 1974, Michael Taylor and his family of 5 kids and his wife would call a place home. Together, with his wife Christine and the family dog. Many considered Michael to be a very mild-mannered man, but very kind and loving father and husband. He was a family man. One source claims that Michael was prone to minor bouts of depression due to a severe back injury from years ago, which led to chronic pain and difficulty finding long-term employment. But other than that, everything seemed fine. He's just your average Joe, happy wife, happy life kind of deal. But during this time, when he had just moved to Ossett, he noticed that they had a very highly religious population, but the Taylors had never been particularly devout themselves. A friend of Michael's by the name of Barbara Wardman would convince Michael to join a local church group, thinking somehow spiritual intervention may ease his periods of depression. He would be introduced to 21-year-old Marie Robinson, who would lead the Christian Fellowship group. It is at this point Michael would begin to change his behavior and become a very active member and coming to meetings regularly. So this is when Michael would first start to drastically change. He would change about 2 more times, and you'll see what I mean here soon. In this time, like I said, he became very well acquainted with their teachings and seemed to be spending an inappropriate amount of time with Marie and joining in congregations where they would use the, quote, the power of God to exorcise people of their sins and speak in tongues. Apparently, Michael would also join Marie in private rituals where they would, and I'm not making this shit up, where they would stay up all night repeatedly making the sign of the cross to each other to ward off the evil power of the full moon.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh my lord. No.
Let me explain real quick. The image in my head I had the whole time reading and writing this. So I imagine just two people kneeling down in front of each other, either praying or fervently just drawing the cross across themselves, just whispering, power Christ compels us, power Christ, and just constantly. It's like, I know it's not a good image for Christians, but that's the first thing that came up in my head when I read that.
See, I got Outlast vibes from that. It upsets me that I know where Yorkshire is. So I was like, I don't like that.
Why, is it a little too close to home?
I mean, it's not close, but I could get there.
Fair enough. For future reference, one of the stories that we're going to cover down the road literally happened behind my neighborhood where I grew up in high school. And I didn't know about it till recently. Yeah. So when we want to talk a little close to home, that's about as close to home as it gets for me. But I digress. You know, it is at this point that the rest of the congregation began to, you know, they knew Michael was enamored, almost obsessed with Marie. You know, his attitude would also begin to noticeably change at home. Michael was noted spending less and less time with his family, and whenever he did, he would become very irritable and argumentative at home. He began to have more bizarre beliefs, bad attitudes, and erratic behavior. His wife, Christine, would soon be tired of this, and she decided during one congregation she would publicly confront Michael about his relationship with Marie, openly accusing him of being unfaithful. Michael surprisingly vented his sudden I skipped the line. Michael reportedly felt, quote, an evil influence cast a shadow over him, unquote, and surprisingly vented a sudden fury not at Christine but at Marie. He lashed out verbally and physically at her to the point that several other congregation members had to physically restrain him. Mary would later testify during Michael's court case, stating, quote, I suddenly glanced at Mike and his whole features changed. He looked almost bestial. He kept looking at me and there was a really wild look in his eyes. I started screaming at him out of fear. I started speaking in tongues. Michael also screamed at me in tongues. I was on the verge of death and I screamed to come to my senses. I knew that only the name of Jesus would save me, and I just started saying over and over again, Jesus. When Chris, referring to Christine, heard me calling on the name of Jesus, she started saying it too, and I believe firmly that it was only by calling his name that I was not killed, unquote. Michael would later claim to have no memory of this incident. His fellow churchgoers would later fully forgive him and give him absolution, but no one forgot the outburst and would always be watching closely from this point on. Time would pass, and Michael only grew worse. So much so that several local ministers would notice and eventually came to the conclusion that Michael was possessed and an evil. I use that word so much in this, I keep saying it. And an exorcism should be performed. Two ministers, Father Peter Vincent and Reverend Raymond Smith, one of these guys was from a Methodist church and the other one was from an Anglican church. I don't know who was from who was from which, so my bad. But noticeably not Catholic. Mm-hmm. They were brought in to carry out the exorcism. You know, this is when Michael gets full on, you know, hellish. Basically, you know, that during this exorcism, you know, the whole gnarling and, you know, speaking in tongues, the stereotypes that you associate happened during this. On October 5th, 1974, at the St. Tames Church in Barnsley, I believe I'm saying that right, at midnight, it lasted 8 hours up until the morning, you know, after a very violent reaction through the exorcism. The priest in charge of the exorcism would claim that around 40 demons had possessed Michael, representing traits like incest, blasphemy, masochism, etc. But after 8 hours, they were exhausted and told Michael that he may go home to rest and finish another time. This is the mistake that they believe that I believe it was the Reverend Raymond Smith believed that he messed up. This is where the exorcism went wrong, is letting him go home. Because they would tell him that he also still had 3 demons infesting him. A demon of insanity, a demon of anger, and a demon of murder. Not 2 hours after coming home with his wife, police officer Ian Walker would find a man running naked, covered in blood, screaming, "It's the blood of Satan!" over and over and over. He would crawl into a fetal position and continue to rant. Many people gathered around to discover that it was Michael Taylor.
Okay, so Cece got it wrong. Yeah.
No.
Oh, no.
Mm.
I was about to say. You're right. No. You're totally right. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Cece. But yeah, no, she got it right. I meant to say.
Yeah.
Because
Cece got it right.
Yeah, because he was found in the middle of his.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was found running down the road in the early mornings, completely naked, covered in blood.
All right.
Many people at the time actually thought it was red paint or something, and that he was just, going mad on something else. But like I said, a local ambulance would then be called, and they arrived to take Michael to a local hospital before a police officer went to the Taylor home to investigate. Walker would discover another police car already there and would witness his inspector emerging from the home, bending over and vomiting in front. The inspector stopped Walker from entering, saying, quote, "You don't want to see this one, son. I've seen nothing like it before, and I've seen a few. It's the wife. She's got no..." He ripped at her, son. "It's a right mess in there. There's not much of her left. You don't want to see it," unquote. Walker then bravely, yeah, this is the dark part. Walker would then enter the Taylor residence and witness an unsightly horror. The front room was just decimated, completely destroyed. Blood covered every wall, and 2 bodies were discovered. It was that of Christine and the family dog. No murder weapon would ever be recovered or used in the murder. So says the coroner, for what I'm about to describe. Christine would have her eyes gouged out and her tongue literally ripped from her mouth. Her face was ripped off and her skull mutilated to the bone. Luckily, reports says that she died quickly due to shock and asphyxiation due to the blood loss. But she was just left completely eviscerated and unrecognizable. The pet dog would literally be ripped apart limb by limb. All of its joints and its legs dislocated from its socket first before it was ripped off.
Dang.
Yeah.
So this is okay.
It gets worse. The hair and the eyes would be ripped from the dog's skull. Oh, and I took a little bit of extra digging. It was a poodle, by the way. Yeah. So imagine that.
I love dogs.
I know. I love dogs too.
So, it's all with his own hands.
Yeah. His own 2 hands.
I know humans are strong enough to do that, but I don't want to think about that.
Well, again, this is what made me question. Like, I get ripping the skin and all that. You don't even need to necessarily be on hard drugs to technically be feasible of doing that. I've seen it, Deadliest Warriors and stuff, to know what it takes to rip human skin and stuff like that. I get it. But to just literally rip limbs off, that takes an inhuman amount of strength. And that's what made me think, what actually happened?
That feels like enough. That feels like something that would damage both the person doing the killing and the person being killed.
Well, I didn't write the quote because it was too long, but when Mike was in the hospital, or not in the hospital, after he was taken out of the hospital and was being questioned by the police, he would tell them, like, look at my hands, look at how broken, or not broken, but like messed up they are from everything. I was pounding on the ground during all these sermons when he was talking about the exorcism and everything. He's like, no human strength could do this, and stuff like that. And it was just, oh God. Yeah, it's hard.
It's a horrible thought.
Yeah. Again, he would be taken into police custody, like I said, and whenever he was seemingly rational enough to comprehend the situation and talk. He was asked how he felt. Michael told the officials he felt, quote, released. "I am released. It is done. The evil in her has been destroyed, unquote. He would be taken to Broadmoor secure hospital to await trial. Reports claim he mostly only slept or just sat quietly to himself. Possibly he was speculating about what he had done, what could happen to his future, the fact that his 5 kids, both lost a mother and a father on the same day. Lots of things could be running through his mind, and I don't know, because he never talked about it as far as I know.
Imagine being the children in that, though.
Exactly, and that's the interesting thing, is that I try to see, what happened to the kids and all that, but it seems like they were probably taken by some family members or neighbors and just kept out of the public light for ever, because I couldn't find anything about their reactions, any comments about it, nothing.
See, I know a family whose father, well, I say no family, I don't know them personally, but I had friends who knew them. And it was in secondary school, as well as we had an announcement that somebody's father had murdered his mother, and the kids were left to try and process that they'd lost both their parents in one day, basically in the afternoon during people learning.
God damn. Yeah, that's hard. I don't have anything specifically that extreme. The closest I have was 1 year in the 9th grade, we had a teacher actually commit suicide. Or not suicide. He was found murdered in his car, and they suspected it was suicide, but they found nothing to prove that it was. So that's like the only other thing. And he was young. He was 27, So
oh, yikes.
It's only 2 years older than me now, So it was pretty intense. I never found out what actually happened to him, but that was years ago. I kind of want to go back and figure out, the full story. But again, topic for another time. Obviously, with talks of demons and the exorcism and the bloody, violent murders that happened in this small town in the countryside, the media went crazy, covering the case. Michael's trial was set in March of 1975, and the jury was advised that the evidence that they were about to hear, quote, will make it difficult to believe that you are not back in the Middle Ages, unquote. Neither prosecution or defense denied that Taylor had severe mental issues. Michael would testify, claiming to have no recollection of the actual killing. He would claim he would confess how deeply he loved his wife and how he was under the influence of supernatural forces. He also claimed how he believed that Christine was possessed with demons, which kind of goes back to his quote, what he was saying about like the evil in her is gone or whatever. He would offer no other explanation about his view or position during, the time of the murder. His defense would agree to discredit, they would argue to discredit the Christian Fellowship prayer group that he was a part of, comparing them to a fanatical cult, and indoctrinated Michael through brainwashing and manipulation. Michael Taylor would be found not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was legally and clinically deemed insane, and spent another 2 years in Broadmoor before spending a final 2 years at Bradford Royal Infirmary before he was released into the world, apparently cured. He would move back to Ossett and still suffer from bouts of depression, and would attempt suicide 4 times, of which he tried to slit his wrist and even jump off a bridge. Obviously, he didn't die.
Poor man.
Yeah, just lost. As far as I know, up until this point, he was more or less back to normal. But how do you go back to normal?
Yeah.
After that,
your life.
Yeah. Your kids, obviously, they're never going to talk to you again.
And
your wife is gone by your hands.
And you're probably well known too.
Oh, you were infamous in this town.
Yeah.
So everyone knows you and knows what you did.
You can't really go back home. So it's not like you want to go back home anyways.
As far as I know, you didn't really have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
But this is not the last time we actually hear of Michael. He would pop back in one more time, as he would be taken to court in 2005 for a sexual harassment charge of an underage minor. Yeah. He was arrested.
Reminder to people that 16 is the limit here.
Oh.
So that's young.
Here's the thing. Depending on the state, some consent laws can go as low as like 12 here in the States. Yeah, that doesn't make me comfortable. And if I'm remembering that stat right, I believe that's Florida.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's mostly in the South too, where you got a lot of the lower number ones, and it just does not sit right with me. It does not.
No, I mean personally, I think the age of consent should be around 18.
18 makes sense.
18 makes sense. I'll go as low as 16 because I mean you're well enough aware of what's going on, and more often than not that your body's changing, puberty and all that. So it's not to say like you aren't aware of things, versus being 9 or 10 or whatever. That's completely different. You don't know what's happening to your body. You don't know what this person's trying to do to you. You don't know what's wrong. A lot of the times it's just. Oh God, it's a whole nother rabbit hole for another case, another day.
Oh yeah.
Because it makes me feel some kind of way, and I don't feel like being angry right now.
But that's so this guy's basically trash now. I don't like. I felt bad for him.
Well, here's the thing too. Here's the thing, because ultimately, when I heard this case, I'm like, okay, this guy's just a fucking deranged idiot. It's what he said to the arresting officer that made me think, okay, hold the phone, because he asked, and I didn't write the quote down, but he asked if he was going back to Broadmoor for what he did to his wife. That is the first thing he said. So that really made me wonder, truly, is he all there? Is he still suffering from some mental disorder that he legally cannot be held accountable for? Is that
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he had mentally taken a hit from what he had done.
I mean, obviously not. Like something happened to him. There's no doubt about it. But for this, the court, by the way, they said that his prior trial in 1975 would hold no bearing on his current trial here. As he was also deemed to be a low to moderate risk for anything severe. So they wound up only giving him 3 years of community service on the condition that he repeatedly seeks psychiatric evaluation. So I can't necessarily say it's fair, but then again, I also don't know the severity of the case. It didn't really pertain to the exorcism, but I think it helps add some context to what's been going on to Michael, and it's just the crazy rabbit hole of this case, that this was the first time that I'm aware of in any court system, any modern court system, where the use of demonic possession was used as a defense. This is the first time I've been able to find it, and it is, oh God.
Is it the last time?
No, because like I said, the case of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson in the States also had the same claim, but for a completely different case and everything, of course. But for that one, that was the first time in a U.S. court system that the claim that the devil made me do it happened there. But like I said, if people want it and we feel like it's a good time to do it, we'll cover that topic. I've done a good amount of research on it. I know the story pretty well. But just another day, another time. But with Michael, I'm interested to know what y'all's final verdict is, because I have my opinion. But hearing the story fresh from me with what you know, what's y'all's opinion on Michael?
It's tough to say.
Right? It's like he seems so normal at first, but as soon as you throw any religious influence into it, it kind of makes it hard to just be skeptical from the get-go, in my opinion.
I feel like we're talking about a man who has some deeply
seated issues.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
Yes, no, definitely mentally ill to some degree.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's the case on this one. I think he's definitely mentally ill. So that's my verdict on it. The dude's mentally ill. I don't know. I don't think it was demons. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I
mean, equally could have been a psychosis.
I mean, yeah, but then I go back to the dog. I'm sorry, I do, and I'm like, even if I was the most vile person on this planet, I don't think of all the strength in my body I could rip my dog's legs apart. I couldn't do that.
But the thing is, that was the Kentucky Vampire, and the guy was. I'm just saying.
Okay,
but it's a common trait in people with these kind of issues.
Okay, but Farrell was also more close to our age, where he's at the peak of his physical prime. Michael Taylor was 32 or 31 when this happened. So he's already, you know, overweight, you know, because you see pictures of him. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
He's not physically fit in any capacity. He's not lifting weights. You know, he's not winning no Mr. Strongman competition. You know, so even then, like I said, even in my prime, I don't think I could do it. And give me another 5 years, 6 years, I definitely couldn't.
Well, that being said, you hear stories of people who have adrenaline rushes, like mother with adrenaline rush trying to save her child, ripped open and ripped off a car door of its hinges.
Yeah, and just throws the car or the lawnmower or whatever. You hear 1,000 stories like that, and I get it. But those cases always have that same singular thread that it was a moment of panic and, you know, just parental or just pure instinct to save a life most of the time, 9 times out of 10. Never to just eviscerate a body, never to just go full psycho, you know, and just destroy the person you claim to love and your family dog. You know, it just, I don't know. To me,
it is a tough one. It is a tough one.
And of course, with all the other cases that I've read about exorcisms and all the other extreme examples of things that just seem so inhuman there, it's just like, I know I'm a skeptic, but part of me was like, but what if, man? You can't always be certain. You know, it's just, I can't. I'm sorry. That is always going to be what stumps me, is the dog. That's the part that's going to get me. You know?
I could never do that to an animal. I am such an animal person.
I mean, I am too. But
and I couldn't understand how somebody could do that. I admit that. I couldn't understand how someone would be able to do that.
I mean, I get it, but I mean, like, I physically could not do it. I can't conceivably know of anybody who can, of free, you know, thought and mind and willpower, be able to just summon the strength to do that. Unless you're like on, you know, methamphetamine or something. Or even then, I don't imagine you'd have the strength to
Wasn't there, I think it's definitely American. I know that much. It was somebody who snorted bar salt and ended up eating somebody's face.
No, he didn't snort it. He smoked it, and there's more than one case of that.
Smoked.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he smoked bath salts. There's more than one case.
Why is there more than one case?
I'll give you 3 guesses where it happened.
Florida.
Yep. Because I know that case.
Florida.
Yeah. I know that case too. Because that dude actually survived. He survived his face being eaten off.
Yeah, I know about that.
How? Oh.
Sheer fucking willpower, I'm guessing. But yeah, no, they lit that.
We judge you Americans so hard.
We judge ourselves so hard. Are you kidding me? Here's the thing that makes Florida so unique is that out of every state, I believe they're like the only one that allows every court hearing or court case be public knowledge. They allow anybody to search it up. It's not behind lock and key. It's not, you know, you don't need to get a certain Freedom of Information Act or whatever going to get these, you know, to get the information on the case. Florida makes that public access. And so when you have that, you get to see all the ridiculous stories. I'm pretty sure other states have their own level of ridiculousness on par with Florida.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Because Florida makes it so easy to find out, we give Florida so much shit, you know? So
I mean, to be fair, in England, we do get titles quite like somebody throwing a wild animal into the window of a drive-thru because they didn't get their chicken nuggets.
Oh, God. So I don't know if you've ever played this, but there's a funny game I found on the internet where you type in your birthday and then type in Florida Man and see what pops up. And
I've played it.
You get some of the best things ever. I believe one that I saw was a couple.
I'm going to do it now.
It was, I cannot remember the name, so I'm going to be paraphrasing off what I read, but it was basically Florida man gets arrested for trying to, it had something to do with like raping a cat from his girlfriend that she stole from a pet store. And
okay, so I typed in my birthday in Florida man, and the article is Florida man cited after authorities found an illegally poached alligator foot stuck in his dashboard.
Oh, God. Oh, man, that is funny.
Now I have to look it up.
Now Vlad has to look it up.
Oh, my God. Why would you have an alligator foot on your dashboard?
and I kind of want y'all's opinion on this right now since we're nearing the end anyways. I have, kind of gone back and forth on the idea of doing a more fun episode. And I thought it'd be fun to look up some Florida man stories. I don't know what.
Yes. Oh my God, please.
Yeah, we talk a lot of dark material. I figured that might be like a fun departure once in a while. It's just like, let's look up some crazy, stupid cases and just really look into it,
Florida man.
I would happily find some weird cases from where I live as well, because we do have a couple here in England.
Okay. So Vlad found one.
Yeah, mine is Florida man throws bicycle, then other man off bridge.
He throws other bicycle, then man?
No, bicycle.
Yeah. So he threw the bicycle first, and then the fucking dude riding the bike.
Somebody, yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my God, how?
I don't know. It's Florida, man. They got superpowers down there, and no IQ points to use them right. I swear.
Like playing VR chat, I run into people from Florida, obviously, and I think I've been told, one of my first stories I got told was this guy said he had someone move up from up north down. He had someone move to Florida, and there's someone who wasn't used to living around gators and such, and had decided about 2 a.m. to go for a swim, and he woke up to screaming because this guy had found a gator in his pool.
Oh god!
So he's trying to figure out how to help this guy, and then the neighbor comes along from I believe it was across the street. And this guy, apparently, the neighbor, shirtless, just dives into the pool, wrestles the gator out, puts him in the back of the truck, and drives off trim into a lake. And I'm like, how?
Oh, well, I mean, because gators are not as prevalent here in Texas, but especially in Houston, we don't call it Bayou City for nothing. We do have gators here too, but obviously not on the scale of the Everglades. But I have seen people personally, like, and I'm not going to, exaggerate and say they were a 20-foot croc. It was like probably 3.5, 4 feet long, so nothing major. But I have seen, even then, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to back away. I don't know what that thing can do to me, and I'm good. It's, it's living its life.
Mm-hmm.
That's smart.
I have seen people go up, just grab it by the jaw, and just keep on walking. Yeah. I have personally witnessed that. I'm just like, you know what? You got bigger cojones than I do, because no way in hell am I doing that. Like, I know the science behind it.
I can hardly handle a spider.
Fair enough. I mean, me personally, I'm okay with spiders, but gators, like, because I know the science behind it. They have more bite force than they do, almost any other animal. They can't open their jaw though, so once you get it clamped down, they can't open it. They have like almost no muscle, like no ability to actually do that. So that's why whenever you see gator shows and all that, they tape around the jaw and all that, because that's more than enough to hold them down.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, even knowing that, I'm still, no way in hell you're going to get me to just walk up and grab a gator out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, I may do it if there's an instructor there who has trained alligators that are used to this and all that. I may consider it then, but even then,
yeah. Have you ever seen an alligator go at max speed? That's enough.
It is terrifying.
That is enough to scare a person.
It is horrible. And they're faster in water too.
Yeah.
They're faster in water.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, we do have reptiles, but we have adders. Well, adders are vaguely poisonous. Venomous, even not poisonous, that's the wrong thing. And if you get bit, it does cause a bit of an issue, but generally speaking, adders are fine. That's the most only thing we have, bar false black widows, which can be a bit pain in the ass.
Well,
but
I mean,
yeah.
With crocodiles specifically, I believe it's crocodiles. I mean, they only exist in 2 places. They exist in America and they exist in China. That's it. So, alligators, I believe, are a little more common, but even then, they don't exist, in most areas around the world. So, yeah, you guys are fine. Thank God.
Actually, I've just realized we do have scorpions in England.
That doesn't surprise me. Scorpions are...
they were brought in from bananas, I believe, and they do inhabit somewhere in Cornwall.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I don't think I've ever seen a scorpion in the wild.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I've seen alligators in the wild.
I've been stung by scorpions.
Oh, wow. Fine.
Yeah, well...
Ow!
Well, they weren't poisonous, thank God, and they were tiny, tiny. But this was back whenever I was out in California, whenever I lived out there, because you got to remember, I was born in a desert. When you think scorpion, what's the first thing you think of? You think desert.
Honestly, now that I think about it, I don't think I've been in one of those giant deserts. I mean, I've lived here my entire life, and we don't really, in this part of Texas, doesn't really have a desert that's like openly available.
No, not unless you go out somewhere closer to El Paso.
Yeah.
But that what, you're going to spend 9 hours to go that far?
Yeah.
Nah, no way, man. But yeah, before we just deviate into more just nonsense talk, we're about done with this episode. I could talk about Florida Man all day long. I really could.
I found another one.
We should do an episode. It's so good.
We should. We'll probably do a special or something like that. I know we've talked about doing a special for our 6 months or whatever. So we'll see what's on the plate for a future.
Yeah.
But if there's anything else I'm not thinking of, I think we've covered everything today.
I say we're good.
Yeah. Well, as always, it was nice talking to you guys. You can always find us all on our Twitter page, on our Instagram, and our Facebook page. Join our Discord if you want to get in on some discussions. And hopefully, by next week, we will have our YouTube channel up for sure.
Yes.
We have everything that we need. It's just a matter of rendering videos and just getting them uploaded right now. But for those who have an issue listening to us on Spotify or something because you're out of the country who doesn't support it, YouTube will be available. So we highly encourage you to share it with your friends, make it easy for everyone to see. And without anything else, I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
We love you all. We love the attention you've been helping us, that you've been giving us. You've been helping us grow. And we just wish you the best. So this is us signing off.
All right. Later.
Bye.
Bye, guys.